Good morning, and welcome to the daily Woodward Fire press briefing. Today is Tuesday, September 1st. My name is Cecile Stelter, and I am one of the public information officers assigned to this incident. In today's briefing, Brandon Chakowski from Operations is back to talk about the operations of the fire. Lori Clark, the Air Operations Branch Director, will be joining us to explain some of the details associated with the aerial activity on the fire. From the county, we have Sergeant Brenton Snyder and Fire Chief Jason Weber. I turn it over to Brandon now.
Once again, good morning, everybody. Another beautiful day, and I'm happy to be here this morning to give you a little update on what's been going on in the last 24 hours. Once again, we'll take a little walk around the fire. Before I do that, I'll also explain to you a little bit about the geography and known points. Starting over the west side of the fire, being over here near Coast Camp Creek. Once again, Limitour Road, coming up off the coast, roundabout the areas of Drake Summit, Silverton, and Fox Drive, continuing along on Limitour Road, which kind of basically comes back out near Point Reyes Station. We also have the park headquarters here at the Bear Valley area. And on the other side of the fire, of course, we have coming down the Bear Valley Trail, and of course the major Highway 1 here, kind of bisecting the map here overall. So as far as some activities that have been going on, once again, we'll start on the west side of the fire, over here by our drop point, DP30, which is also in Division Zulu. The ridge is just east of Coast Camp Creek. We got some good containment down through there yesterday with resources. That combination of the hand line that's in there, piece of dozer line, and the water that came down from all the way at the top. Like we talked before, there's about 2 miles of hose that comes all the way down here. We're feeding that hose lay with water tenders. So they got some good water down there, and we're showing some containment. And I'll talk about differences between containment and how we look at that in relation to roughly a 4,000 acre fire here in a couple of minutes. Coming up, Division Charlie's actually looking really well. They've been doing a lot of good mop-up up there for the last several days along the dozer line and some other areas of hand line. Obviously, the hand line being a little bit smaller, bare mineral scrape, down to 1.5 to 2 feet wide. We expect some additional containment on this side here by later today. Coming back around up here on top where Sky Trail, Z Trail kind of come together. We have that dozer line that comes down and goes back to Limitour Road. Yesterday, our plan was to do some firing operations with people on the ground, a helicopter with PSD, and or the unmanned aircraft, the UAV, with a PSD dispenser, the small balls that come down and are able to do some igniting for us. But what happened yesterday is the Marine never really left us. And so our burning conditions didn't really exist yesterday. Our relative humidities at times and where we wanted to burn were still 94% throughout mid-afternoon. And so for us to accomplish our objectives of getting in what we call good black in depth off of our control line, reducing the understory vegetation, we have to be able to get our RHs down into the 60s, 70s. So we have some good enough fire behavior to reduce those fuels, but it's also a good threshold that we're able to have and keep control of our fire at the same time that we're putting on the ground. We weren't able to get there yesterday. Today, we still have the same plan. We're waiting for what we call the window. The window when our weather is right to be able to come in and take care of this today. So still on plan. Come around Limitour Road back to our division or branch break that we have here right behind the visitor center. That continues to do mop up along the Limitour Road and the dozer line that's in behind the visitor center. That's all going very well. There isn't any issues in there, not yesterday or last night overall. Coming down Bear Valley Trail, things are looking really good in that area. The crews continue to monitor that and do mop up along the line to make sure we don't have anything that basically a fire wants to climb up a tree and spot over the road. So they're keeping all that on the ground and getting some things mopped up and taken care of. We did some good work yesterday and continue to do some good work down here on the Baldy Trail. Once again, the high relative humidity is being close to the coast, and that marine layer that's set in pretty well has kind of limited us being able to finish cleaning this up. Looking at the weather forecast, we're hoping today the marine layer will shift out good and we'll be able to get that taken care of. Structure group continues. We're actually done with the assessments that were planned up in this area by cooperation from the Marin County Fire Department and their defensible space folks. We had upwards of 16 of those here, and they're starting to trickle out of here today, going back to their normal work. But a lot of great work, great interface with the community, and very good cooperation that we've had with all of our partners on that one. Night shift, still have night shift out. We still have overhead and 7 engines and a water tender working our night shift. And they're taking and making sure along the road here at Bear Valley Trail, the Limitor Road, that the fire is staying within our containment line. One of the big reports there from night shift, and it continues to be a concern and hazard for our day shifters, the falling trees. Night shift continues to report, just like day shift does, they continually hear trees fall. They fall across the road, they fall interior, where the fire's at and near the fire's edge. Last night, down here in this, what we call our whiskey country, there was a very large bay tree with roughly, I believe there were 7 different leaders on that bay tree that came over the road. One of our engines was back here, and they had sent a couple more to help, basically cut the road back open. That continues to happen and continues to be a very big concern for the safety of our fire personnel as we're looking to control this fire and making sure it stays within our control lines. And not far from there as well, we also had a large diameter, and it's 7 feet in diameter. For reference, I'm only 6 feet, so the tree was bigger in diameter than I am tall, come across and just went parallel to the road. So those are the hazards that our firefighters are facing on this fire, which is a big concern for us. Especially when you come up into what we call mop-up. Mop-up being able to go into the fire deep enough to basically control the edge of the fire so we don't have to worry about it crossing any of our lines. Okay, while we look out for our firefighter safety, we have to be able to mitigate the hazards that are out there. The trees are a very big hazard that we're looking at. So we only want to do the mop-up that to the extent necessary to be able to come in here far enough to make sure in the future with some increased weather, obviously some winds, increased winds, lower RHs, and hotter temperatures, that our fire won't escape. Okay? The other piece I want to talk about, so when we talk about mop-up, we'll only be mopping up a fairly small portion around the edge just to make sure it stays in the overall footprint of the red that you see on the map. Within that red footprint, there will be those large diameter 7-foot trees, 3-foot diameter trees, big bay trees burning for a little while. Okay, so that smoke will continue because of the safety, etc. So we get containment. We're doing pretty good there, and overall kind of tried to hit up on more plan for the mop-up and how that's going to go. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Lori Clark. I'm the Air Operations Branch Director for the team. My function is under the branch of operations, and I'm a support function. And what we do is we make sure that the use of aircraft on this fire is done efficiently, effectively, and safely. So with that, Brandon talked a little bit about what they're trying to do with the fire. My job is to make sure we're using the right types of aircraft. And I know that some of the questions have been, why do we have so many aircraft that aren't being flown? So that's where the safety part comes in. My job is to make sure that we are utilizing the safe protocols that we have in place. So we do have what's called a temporary flight restriction over our fire. That gives us safe space for our aircraft to operate. However, we have to operate when we can see the ground. Our pilots require the ability to see ridge tops, trees, snags that are hiding in the fog or the clouds, and if they can't see those things, then we cannot operate under that safety function. So some of the things that we've been using early on as water scoopers in this area here. The water scoopers were dipping up to Malas Bay. That is salt water. That was approved by the park. All of the activities we utilize, whether it's retardant or water, we ensure that we are utilizing a resource that the park has said is okay to use. There are some dip sites over here that we were using until we found out that there might be some issues with some aquatic invasives. Again, we work very closely with the resource advisors on this fire to make sure that we aren't going to cause an effect downstream. So the salt water was applied, Division C, probably the first 2 days of the fire, and after the visibility declined for us, we were unable to utilize those aircraft. They are now gone. They've gone to Arizona. We do have 2 Type 1 helicopters, 3 Type 2 helicopters, and a Hellcall platform, which is an aircraft that flies at lower level in through the smoke where we can see a little bit better. Those aircraft aren't flying because of those very reasons I said. We need to be able to see what we're doing before we can go fly. The other thing is not, if we can't see the target that we're hitting, there's a potential for us to possibly hit a firefighter, which we do not want to do. So the buckets carry about 300 gallons, and that weighs about 8 pounds per gallon, so we certainly don't want that to come down on a firefighter. Retardant was utilized over here early on in the fire and right up here to help kind of control that. Now, retardant and water have 2 very different functions. Retardant covers up the vegetation and renders it unburnable. However, if we use it in an area where the vegetation is too thick, the retardant just coats the top of the vegetation and the fire can still burn underneath it. So when we apply that, we make sure that we're utilizing it in an area where the fuels, it can cover the fuels and do the job we want it to do. Brandon mentioned the drone. We do have a drone. It's a Matrix 600 for those who want to look that up. It carries about 450 spears, which are little balls that once they drop, there's a chemical reaction in that spear, and it causes the vegetation to ignite. We need the right conditions for that, and we've been using it primarily up in this area to try to help operations clean that up a little bit. So I think that's about all I had. I want to make sure I answered all the questions. Yes, smoke is our limiting factor as well as the fog. The reason we still have so many aircraft is if this marine layer and fog does break down, that fire is going to wake up and we're going to need all those resources to help the firefighters out. That's all from America.
Perfect. Good morning, everyone. Brendan Schneider with the Sheriff's Office. To reiterate some of the warnings and orders that are in place, still we only have the order in Silver Hills, Fox Drive, and Norton Way area. That's the only order that's currently in place. And that's, again, talking with ops yesterday, the fire is within, because of where Lemontor Road, about 1/8 of a mile of the closest house. So that's why that area is still under an order. Evacuation warnings remain in place for the communities of Sea Haven, Inverness Park, Drake's View, and also Olema, from Margaritas Creek south to Sir Francis Drake, up to Olema Hill and everything in between, and then south along Highway 1 down to Five Brooks, everything west, and east to the ridge line of Lenas Ridge Fire Road. I know that there's been quite a few questions about the smoke in the area, and I know Chief Weber is going to touch on a lot of that. But it's important to remember that even though once the fire is contained, there still will be a lot of heavy timbers within the fire that are going to continue burning and putting off smoke, and the layer, or the marine layer, does not help that. It holds the smoke down, doesn't allow it to go up in the air and to dissipate. And then this morning, in talking with our public health officer, he had some good talking points in that Marin County residents, public health is recommending that you stay at home when possible, when feasible. For those that cannot avoid prolonged outdoor exposure, the use of an N95 mask is recommended. However, It's important that we remember, because we are in the middle of a COVID-19 pandemic, that there is a shortage of N95 masks. So if when all possible, please just remain indoors, keep your windows and doors shut, and that should help with the smoke. Thank you.
Morning, everyone. So you've heard from Brandon talking about the fire operationally. Heard from Lori talk about some of the challenges we have with aircraft, but they're still committed and there's still a use for them. You know, the challenge has been and continues to be the fuel we're operating in. Talking with some of the dozer operators that were out working on this fire, they said this is some of the heaviest fuel they've ever worked in, 20, 30-foot high brush underneath large old growth canopy. There's no recorded fire history in this area south of the Vision Fire scar. So, you know, this is putting out an unprecedented amount of smoke, and I know that's one of the greatest challenges we as a community are facing. I live in Novato, San Marin area. It's been some of the hardest hit with the smoke. You know, my kids are home, homeschooling 4 of them. My wife, it is challenging. So we certainly appreciate the information we're getting and the frustrations that are out there. This isn't something we're trying to extend or prolong. This is really Mother Nature that's challenging us. We have just enormous amounts of fuel. We have a fog layer that's kind of holding the smoke in and an aversion that's holding it in. Compare it to a fire in your fireplace. When it's first starting, it's really smoky. It's not burning really well. Once that fireplace starts to burn really well, the smoke there's much less smoke. It burns hot and clear. Well, we're in kind of that smoldering phase that's putting up a lot of smoke. Our weather pattern is going to change this weekend, and I suspect it's going to get better for a lot of us. It may impact other areas or south of this county or the south end of the county, different than the north. But when we say it's smoking for a few months, we don't expect this level of smoke. Once we get through these few days of an opportunity to burn this off, you'll see when it gets hotter and drier, it's going to burn a little cleaner. The winds are going to push it in a different direction. But there will be things on this fire that smoke for probably till we have a season-ending event, kind of rainfall 3 inches, but nothing like we're experiencing today. So we want to clarify that. You know, we're in the worst of it right now. It is going to get better. Brendan mentioned, as did Lori, the challenges with firing. We have to do this at the right time. This builds our control lines that are going to help us for weeks and months to come. We're going to get wind tested this weekend. We expect hotter weather, warmer weather with some wind. That will challenge our lines. It'll also allow us the opportunity to clean some of these lines up so that in 2 or 3 weeks from now, when we have another weather event, we don't lose these control lines. That's the most important thing, because none of us want to go through this again. And we've got to make sure we button up those lines around this. You know, we've had some questions about containment versus extinguishment. Understand, containment is the lines around the edge of the fire. Complete extinguishment, you know, is something we do within several hundred feet of the containment lines, because that's what we can get to. This area out here in this wilderness, Burton Wilderness, isn't something we can get water to. It isn't something we can put firefighters down into those areas with a substantial amount of water for a log that, as Brendan mentioned, is taller than him, certainly taller than me. You know, those are the challenges we're dealing with. So the smoke will be coming off the interior of the fire. Our work is predominantly around the edges to make sure our communities are safe and this stays within the borders. Future plans for hazard mitigation in the communities. As we all know, we brought forward to our voters in March Measure C, which was focused on wildfire prevention measures. This is exactly why. We want to be able to prevent and mitigate any kind of threats or hazards, or as much as we can, in and around our communities. Our strategy is the same. We know where the work needs to be done. We now have some resources to do that work. Several years ago, we partnered with Marin County Fire Department, partnered with the National Park Service to expand our fire crew program, and do additional work in and around the park. That includes the substantial Bishop Pine and the pitch canker die-off that's on the Inverness Ridge. We're also working with state parks up there to mitigate a lot of that fuel. That still remains a priority, as it has been for several years, and we've invested a ton of work in that area. I think everybody's well aware we need to do more. We're committed to that, both the park and Marin County Fire Department. Brenton mentioned it, but I want to reiterate, is the fire close to Fox Road. So the Fox Drive is about 200 to 300 feet from Limitor Road, where we're doing some of the firing operations. The reason we have that still under mandatory evacuation is we've got live fire on the ground, within several 300-400 feet of Fox Drive. As we button that up and feel comfortable with those control lines, we have a process to start to ease the evacuation orders and warnings in those areas, but we're going to do it strategically. And we understand it's nerve-wracking to still be under a warning or an order, but your safety is our primary concern, and we're not going to lift that until we really feel comfortable with it. So we appreciate your patience there. Lori talked about the marine layer, as did Brendan. That is some of our challenge here and if you look at the coast fire up on the north coast in Sonoma County, they're experiencing similar things. I've talked to our firefighters. They're in Santa Cruz area. These coastal fires, it doesn't burn a lot, and when it does, it's smoky and it's challenging. So we're experiencing all across the north side of the coast, north state of the coast. So again, we appreciate your patience. We're hoping this weekend will push some of the smoke out of these areas, and we're doing everything we can to mitigate it. Thanks for your patience.
Again, thank you for your continued support and displays of appreciation. Don't forget to check out INCIWeb, that's INCIWeb.nwcg.gov for fire updates, photos, and videos. The fire statistics for today are the fire now covers 4,465 acres and is 25% contained. There are 567 personnel currently assigned to this incident. That includes 13 crews, 36 engines, 5 helicopters, 4 planes, 5 bulldozers, 2 masticators, and 5 water tenders. That concludes today's briefing. Thank you for tuning in. Stay safe, and we'll see you here tomorrow.